Welcome to the Travel Plus Loyalty Podcast. We are again ready with our Monday morning update. Today, we'll go a bit deeper into the aviation industry than we normally do. We will take a look behind the scenes on what it takes to keep planes flying and how the so-called MRO industry are holding up. MRO stands for Maintenance, Repair and Operations. Our theme today is ST Aerospace. ST Aerospace was established in 1975 to provide maintenance and support services to the Republic of Singapore Air Force. Since then, it has diversified into various MRO capabilities for commercial and military aircraft through a number of strategic partnerships, acquisitions, and investments. ST Aerospace employs in the excess of 8,000 certified engineers and administrative specialists around the world, and has a global customer base that includes military forces, major airlines, and freight carriers. ST Aerospace has also an office in Copenhagen, and here Henrik Schlotfeldt has his home base as managing director. He travels all around the world for work, and therefore he knows the industry from the inside, but also as a frequent flyer. Our Alan Hovery meets Henrik Schlotfeldt in a meeting room at the conference center at the Claren Hotel Copenhagen Airport. They meet up for a talk on how last year has been in the industry and how Henrik Schlotfeldt looks at the future. Let's get started with today's deep dive talk, and over to Alan Hovery at the Claren Hotel.
Welcome to our podcast today. We are taking a subject and taking it a bit further than you will normally do, because when you're checking in at the airport, you expect the flight to leave on time and expect to get the services on board. But there's a lot of things happening before it gets to that point. Spare parts, fuel, a lot of other things as well. One who knows everything about it is Henrik Schlotfeldt. Henrik, can you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you are doing?
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for inviting me. Correct. I have been working in the aviation industry for 22 years. I'm currently employed in ST Engineering Aerospace, which have its headquarters in Singapore, and are one of the largest players in providing aviation services to airlines. So I have a good experience in this range, and we offer a wide range of services from aircraft leasing and aircraft maintenance, component maintenance, engine maintenance, to another part of our business that manufactures spare parts for aircraft. I'm responsible for our component maintenance business in Scandinavia, and as well head of our marketing for EMEA region for the group. So I have some credits.
We see a lot of aircraft parked around the world, and very few flights in the air. When one is in your type of business, this is not really a very good sign. What would you say is or has been the biggest challenge for the last year?
It's sure that with a reduction in activity globally so fast, this have a dramatic impact on our business as well. We were hit as fast as all the commercial airlines was hit. So we see the impact as everybody else see. We see the aircraft being parked in the airport as well, being parked at the runways. So for sure it has an impact. For us, we are supporting cargo airlines as well. And we see a dramatic increase in demand from the cargo airlines. This both be in the services business and in the part of business where we have a separate business that do conversion of outdated passenger aircraft into cargo aircraft. And this business line has increased dramatically. So from our perspective, for sure, we are impacted significantly from the drop, but with the variety of services we are able to provide, we hope to get out of the pandemic in a stronger position.
When one is thinking back in March last year, all of a sudden, hardly any aircrafts, hardly any movement in any airport around the world. Your business is basically to provide both components and spare parts. How was that all of a sudden to be sitting here with limited capacity and clients who were screaming?
It's sure that when there's no aircraft flying, people will not get the aircraft parts delivered, or the customers will not get the aircraft parts delivered. We rely behind the scene on the airlines as much as the airlines do, because we use them to ship parts globally around the world, from small boxes that goes into that could be transported by cargo operators like FedEx and DHL, to major components like, for instance, inlet cowl and 787, which take up most of the space in the 747 cargo. And this challenge in having the capacity in the market is the most challenging aspect that we see. We see as well that prices, for sure, when capacity has gone down, would explode, because most of the airlines that still fly with reduced capacity, they use this the cargo to make sure that there's activity at all. So pricing has increased with between 3 to 4 times than what we saw pre-COVID.
I think we have all seen, at least once here in Denmark, we have seen people overflying Copenhagen Airport on an aircraft, and we have seen all the aircrafts parked alongside the runways. When things are going to start again, how long does it take for these aircrafts to be operating again? Is there any rule of thumbs as to what to expect there?
It very much depends on what type of preservation that the airlines have conducted on this aircraft that you see on the tarmac. They could decide to do short-term parking and then keep the aircraft flying randomly. And by this, it would be able to return it quite fast with a few hundred hours effort to return into service. But if you have an aircraft which have been decided to put on long-term parking, the aircraft has been put into a preservation process, which is basically emptying oil, put in special fluids to the systems, put it in a condition where it's able to last in good condition for a long period. This will take quite a while to get it back. It could be 3 to 4 weeks at least to get one aircraft back into service. But we see there's an element to it as well that we in the support business see as well, that the condition, it's extremely important that the protection process when they park an aircraft for such a long period, that they preserve it correctly, because we see a lot of incidents with heavy corrosion when they try to pull the aircraft out of a long-term parking situation. and this has to be rectified before the aircraft is airworthy again. So it's extremely important that the airlines spend the effort to preserve the aircraft correctly to avoid having any additional cost in the end that would hit them. Because for sure, cash will be an issue for the airlines when they have to return into service.
What is the most common thing that you have to change on an aircraft that has been parked? Do you have any idea on that?
From our perspective, it's always the outer part of the aircraft. Yeah. So it would be mostly structural parts. Mm-hmm. It could be inlet cowls, it could be thrust reversers, it could be doors, opening doors, it could be part of the landing gear, which have been affected by the weather in the area where it's parked, creating a situation of corrosion.
I just go back to my own car when I've been on holiday, and I start my car from the parking lot. It's like square wheels. Is the same thing happening on an aircraft?
That could happen, yeah. And this is why they need, in a preservation process, they need to move the aircraft with certain intervals to make sure that this doesn't happen to the wheels when they go into service again.
Sort of when we are looking at this from sort of a general perspective, how long will it take for, let's say, a normal European airlines to be back to some kind of normality? Will there be sort of any bottlenecks on the road, do you think, or will it be fairly smooth? We are talking about a reopening of Europe. Will they be ready?
I think they will be ready, and they are planning as much as they can. But what we see is that the airlines as well have reduced their staffing during the pandemic, and try to reduce the cost by release people and put them on furlough systems, depending on what country we are referring to, and getting all these resources back, making sure that they are properly qualified. You have the proper spare parts. Takes a while, so it's not something you cannot turn on the bottom and then within 3 days the whole fleet is operating again. So a rule of thumb, my estimate would be that between 3 to 6 months would be the delay it will take before a fleet would be back into service again.
Well, most airlines have had a sort of a minimum fleet operating, and I think at least some of the routes can be reopened pretty quickly. But in your mind, what can people expect? Which routes do you think will be the ones they will put them on from the beginning, or is there anything that you will say that this makes sense for an airline to operate these routes because here we can service them, here we can make sure, and so forth?
From our industry perspective, it's not important because we, by supporting the airline, have built a network around a globalization strategy, which means that we are able to support the customers where the aircraft are. The aspect from our perspective is that we are a global provider to airlines. At the same time, so for the day-to-day transactions, we provide services to the customers where their main bases are. It's not that important where they are flying to, but it's more important where their main bases are, because this is where you build the support around. You have maintenance facilities in addition, that is where you do the larger checks. And the tradition in the industry is that these are centralized in hubs around the world, where it makes sense to do large checks on the aircraft. And the airlines is used to fly the aircraft to these locations. So for us, be able to support the airlines in the startup phase. Doesn't really matter if they start to fly to New York, to Miami, or to South Africa. It doesn't make a difference for us.
Talking about this major change, could you elaborate a little bit about the strategy that your company is taking, or will there be any changes to the way you have been doing business, or how do you see moving on with all these learning points that was disruptive for all of us?
For sure, we have been affected as well. As we have seen a dramatic reduction in activity in the industry, we have been forced to take cost reduction measures to make sure we have a sustainable platform in the long run. We foresee that the business will only recover, and that is our target, that business will recover around 2024 to be, from a global perspective, be comparable versus 2019, which is our last reference point, which is abnormal or normal. And so for that reason, we need to build a business that is long-term sustainable. We spent, when the pandemic hit us, we spent like the first 6 months to take actions on all these initiatives, basically to reduce our cost levels and to improve set activities to improve our efficiency. But we have also taken initiatives as well to be prepared on the other side. So we have put in investments in new product lines, in new services to customers, because we see that we need to be ready when the market opens and be able to support the airlines. ST Engineering is a reputable supplier in the market, and we see already now that our customers is going for the larger suppliers, which have a large footprint, because they might be afraid if the suppliers is there tomorrow, because it's sure that we are in the industry going hand in hand with the airlines. If they are affected, we are affected as well. So but we see signs that market is starting to recover, and we see tractions with the airlines. We see as well for the cargo industry that this has been booming for the last 12 months. And this is for sure driven by e-commerce, but also from the lack of capacity of cargo capacity on passenger aircraft. And we expect to see a slight reduction in capacity or activity from the cargo airlines when the passenger traffic start to peak again. But it's still a market. The whole cargo industry is a market where we see that the volume of business will boom. Just to give a reference point, we had last year in 2020 we had 10 production lines globally where we did nose-to-tail conversion of passenger aircraft to cargo aircraft. We foresee next year that we will have 40 parallel lines converting passenger aircraft to cargo aircraft. And this is driven by the point that the growth in e-commerce is so big that Boeing and Airbus is not able to supply the number of aircraft that is required to boost or support the volume. And at the same time, we are in a situation from a market perspective where there's a lot of surplus aircraft coming out of activity from the airlines that is available. So we the niche and the approach we take is that this is a good opportunity to boost the conversion programs to support the e-commerce growth.
So basically, one thing going down and another thing going up. So at least there's still some hope for a recovery, because also when the normal scheduled aircrafts are coming back, there will be belly loads, and then jointly with the cargo, it will be exciting to see how the airlines now will suffer, because one of the things is that now they start up again. They have been out without cash flow for a long time, and I guess this is also something that you are looking at from a let's say delivery perspective, that you are not in a situation whereby all of a sudden that somebody might not survive all of this. I'm quite sure you have a plan for that. But moving on to something more current, we have received some questions from another frequent flyer, because when not sending spare parts around the world, you have been sitting in aircraft going all the places, because you basically cover a huge area. So there's a lot of things going on at the moment. When do you think that you will be able to go to US again? Because you also had US as one of your areas.
I think US would happen next year. I don't think we would be able to travel to US for the next 6 months. It could be the market will open, but being open permanently, which is important, will take some time. I think EMEA region, Africa will take a long time as well. Middle East will open up quite quickly. And this is going to be one of the center points of the activity increase in the whole aviation industry, would be the growth in the Middle East, that the airlines, Qatar Airways, Emirates and Etihad is able to recover fast. And so we expect to be in that region quite fast.
So which of all the destinations you normally go business-wise is the one that you are missing the most?
If you had asked me 15 years ago, it would have been Singapore. But I think I've been in Singapore like 25, 30 times. So if I should choose today, one of my most selective destinations would be San Francisco. It's a joy after a long flight to arrive and sit down at the harbor, get some seafood and enjoy a good beer overseeing the San Francisco harbor. That's one of my points that I'm missing. But I think it will take a while before we come back to San Francisco.
Yeah. When you're going around the world and you're having all your meetings, what is the longest flight you have ever had?
I think the most crazy trip I've been on was 3.5 days to Auckland and back again. I basically left Copenhagen on a Sunday night and arrived Tuesday morning. I left Auckland again Wednesday at noon and was back again in Copenhagen Thursday afternoon. It took some time to recover.
I can imagine. You have a lot of insights as to the aviation industry from your point of delivering spare parts, etc. Are there any specific aircraft which you think will be going out of service quicker than others? And how do you foresee the new fleet from an airline perspective? What type of aircrafts will be operated in the future?
From my perspective, it's certain that we will see most of the 4-engine aircraft disappearing. On passenger aircraft, for cargo aircraft, there's still a lot of activity going on. But for passenger aircraft, the aircraft types like A380s, A340s, 747s will most likely disappear to a large extent. Basically driven by the fact that we would see a reduced activity the next 3 to 4 years. At the same time, the airlines would have new deliveries of aircraft that they would backfill with the reduced fleet that they have at this stage. And for that reason, I think what we will see basically is that the airlines is shortcutting the phase out of their fleet that would have taken place maybe 5 years from now, will take place now. So this is the movement I foresee will happen in the industry. And for sure, you have aircraft types like, even though it's 2-engine aircraft, the 777-300ER, which is there's a lot of volume in the market. This aircraft type is still expensive to operate, and I think it would take a while before that aircraft type is back into service as well. It would not be the first one that you as an airline would pick, basically because your operating cost would be high, your maintenance cost would be higher, you operate an aircraft that would be out of warranty. Where most airlines that have A350s and 787s have quite new aircraft, and they would be under warranty at a reduced maintenance cost, and for that reason they would primarily focus to operate these aircraft in a period where their revenue on each of the flights would be less than what it would be in a normal environment.
Basically, what we have seen under the COVID is that we have a number of new entrants in the market. In particular, in the Nordics, we in Norway have just seen recently a lot of new airlines operating into Norway, and we have just recently also seen rumors about a new low-cost carrier who is going to be operating. Is it the right time, in your opinion, to start all of these routes? And if yes, why?
I would say, as a supplier to all these airlines, I would welcome them. But as a cautious supplier, we hope that our customers is making money, because this is the way we make money. And I would maybe be a little bit hesitant. We have seen a lot of examples of airlines trying to fly low cost, long range, and basically most of them have failed. To some extent, I think the prime reason is that they do not have cargo as a product line which of importance that is big enough to basically supplement, because you would see that at least 30 to 40% of the revenue on an aircraft would be cargo, and if they miss this portion, then it would be very difficult to make money. So I for sure hope that they would be successful, and we will welcome them in the marketplace. But I hope they have a good business case that makes sure that they have a business case supporting with cargo as well.
Normally, sort of at this time, when we are getting questions from our frequent flyers, we will ask you about your favorite airline, but you are a supplier to all of them. So in fairness, I will not ask you that one. But is there anything that you will sort of share with us as a final remark on how you see things developing from here?
As I mentioned previously, it's highly unlikely that the aviation industry will recover soon. We would see activity grow, but at the same time, it has to be profitable activity. And I think for the next 6 to 12 months after opening, it would most likely not be a long-term profitable activity, and they need funding. And this is one of the areas where I, as a supplier, hope that the airlines have a solid business case, because we are as dependent on the payments from our customers as the airlines are. So in this case, it's I'm for sure concerned about the overall cash situation in the market. And if we look at Denmark as an example, most of the support from government has to be paid back at some stage, and this is only a short-term help. It's not a long-term help. So I'm quite concerned that this would bite us somewhere in the back at a later stage. And we are still see a lot of uncertainties regarding the rollout of the vaccines. And as long as there's no global strategy on how to handle passengers, how to handle the vaccine rollout program, and how to validate if vaccine types is acceptable, we would see a lot of uncertainty from our customers in the aircraft, and this would generate a rollback situation to the airlines that it would be difficult to fill up the aircraft to a lot of the destinations that they're flying to today. The major hubs would most likely be filled up fast, but most of the customers we have major hubs, and then they have like seasonal routes, or they have routes where it's specific business cases that justify for sure that it's operated. And if this is the case, they would be very vulnerable for any changes in political decisions on opening the country, closing the country, and this would have an immediate rollback on us as a company and as a supplier, because then we would end in a situation again where our customers is not able to pay. But for sure, we hope that we would come into a 2021 where the situation would be much more stable than what we saw in 2020, where the whole country, the whole world closed with a very short notice. But for sure, we look forward to the growth in the passenger traffic as well, and we are doing whatever we can to be ready to support our customers when they are planning to start flying again.
It is quite difficult to predict what the traffic is going to be like when things are opening, and also how fast. You just mentioned that will be one of the big change and one of the big differences from before, where you could predict a lot of things. So in your mind, how would the airline approach this size of aircraft, and what type of aircraft to put into certain routes? Let's say Copenhagen, Stockholm, for instance. Is it going to go straight to a bigger aircraft, or are you moving into smaller aircraft, or any of the destinations really in Europe? What do you think will happen?
My initial thought is that we would see that the airlines that have the opportunity with a wider range of fleet, that they will start out with the smaller aircraft, and then when demand picks up, they will introduce or pull back the larger aircraft into service. So, for instance, on a European route, you might see a lot of CRJs, Embraers, ATRs, Q400s flying around in the first period. And then you would see the larger Airbus 320s, 321s, 737s picking up at a later stage. And this is primarily driven from the fact that the airlines need to keep the operating cost as low as possible. And this is also why, as we addressed before, on the two-engine aircraft and the four-engine aircraft, that on the long-haul traffics, where A380 is extremely expensive to operate, I foresee that it would be much easier to recover a route with smaller aircraft, flexible aircraft, and like the new Airbus 321s, long range and extra long range aircraft would be a fantastic aircraft to start a route when you focus on the passengers. But there's a downturn that it has limitations on cargo. And this has to go hand in hand. So there's no straight line what makes best sense. It's a business case from route to route perspective. But it's going to be a gradually increase. And we should not expect that, for instance, Emirates will start to fly Copenhagen with the A380 on daily basis in a short while. This will take a while to come back into to have the capacity and the volume of business in the market that will allow that is sensible to put it back. But you already now see that Emirates, for instance, on their London Dubai route is operating the A380 because they have the volume of business. There's enough passengers. But on the Copenhagen route, it will take a while. But just so people understand the logic behind it, and on the A380, which is an interesting, remarkable aircraft that it's a spotlight for the European aviation industry, it's extremely expensive to operate. You can basically fly two 787s behind or next to each other and carry the same number of passengers as one A380 with the same unit cost on two 787s than what you have on one A380. So the A380 would have a unique position on the routes where you have constraints in capacity, basically from an airport perspective. And this is why the very large aircraft will take a while before they come back into service. I for sure hope they will come back into service again, not because we want to maintain them, because it's a fabulous aircraft to fly.
I totally agree. One can say that, you mentioned it yourself, you have been 20 years in this industry. So what is the biggest difference from maintaining aircraft or components from then and until now? What would you say is the biggest change?
What we see is that the man hours required to maintain a modern aircraft versus a classic aircraft has reduced dramatically. So the effort required on an Airbus 320 or new 737 MAX versus old MD-80 is very different. You also have the aspect where when you bought an MD-80 back in the 80s, the customers was able to customize the aircraft to an extent that was like you could pick a lot of parts specific for your own aircraft. And this creates for us as a service provider to the industry a headache because it's a very low level of standardization. Whereas if we look at the aircraft being delivered today, the modern aircraft is a high degree of standardization. And this creates a situation where it's much easier to maintain. The operating cost in the maintenance situation is lower for the airline. And it helps them to keep their unit cost low. So this period of time, if you pull out like 30, 40 years, the industry at all has been, will be affected, and we expect to see it in the future as well, with a reduced number of man hours required What is important is that the airlines, now it gets a little bit nerdy, but they have maintenance programs that fits their fleet that make sure that we maintain them at a condition that makes sure that they have a high degree of reliability on the aircraft, creating as little disturbance to their traffic systems. Because for sure, we are the one that is being scolded by the customers when the aircraft is not able to get back into the service if they have had aircraft on ground. But with the new aircraft models, it's much easier to support the airlines than what we saw in the past, going 20 years back.
On this note, I think we will say thank you very much for sharing all your valuable insights with us and listeners, and hope to have you back soon, where we might be talking about other aspects of this industry. So thanks very much for joining us today, and see you again soon.
Thank you, Alan.
That is the end of today's Monday morning update. We hope you enjoyed the deep dive and the behind-the-scenes talks with Henrik Schlotfeldt from ST Aerospace Engineering. We from the Travel Plus Loyalty podcast team wish you a very good day, and if you do travel, then we wish you a safe travel.